Alright, 6D, we're going to use everything that we've learned in this unit and solve equations that have roots in them. Okay, so here's our steps. We're going to isolate the radical first. So get the root by itself first. It's always going to be your first step. And then you're going to do the inverse of whatever the root is to get rid of it. And then we solve for the variable just like a regular equation that you've been doing for forever. Okay, and just like we did with absolute value equations, we have to check for extraneous solutions. And the way we do that is just to plug our answer or answers back in to make sure that they all work and there's none of them that are extraneous. So here is my first equation that I'm going to look at. And I need to get the radical by itself first. So I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. And so now I have the square root of 2x minus 3. And that's going to be equal to 5. Okay, the opposite of a square root is to square both sides. So I'm going to square both sides of this equation. On the left side, squaring just gets rid of my root, so I have 2x minus 3. And on the right side, 5 squared is 25. And then this is a regular two-step equation from way back in like 7th grade. Add 3 to both sides. 2x equals 28, and so x equals 14. Alright, and then I always have to check for extraneous solutions, so I'm going to take that 14 and plug it into the original equation. So I have 3 plus the square root of 2 times 14 minus 3, and that has to equal 8. Alright, 2 times 14 is 28. 28 minus 3 would be 25. The square root of 25 is 5. 3 plus 5 is 8. 8 is equal to 8, so that solution works. It's not extraneous. Okay. Over here, we have instead of it written as a root, we have it written as a fraction power, but that's okay. Same rules apply. So I need to isolate that root part. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3. So now I have x plus 1 to the 2/3 is equal to 4. Okay, and to get rid of this 2/3 power, I'm going to go to the inverse power. So I'm going to raise it to the 3/2 power. Okay, so again, these 2/3 and 3/2 would cancel each other out, and I'm left with x plus 1 on the left side. Alright, on the right side, I'm going to do 4 to the 3/2 in my calculator. Alright, make sure that you are using parentheses when you do this. So I'm doing 4 to the 3/2. So make sure you put that 3/2 part in parentheses. Alright, and my answer there is 8. Now, anytime you do a raise something to a power and the root, the bottom part is even. Anytime that number is even, we have to do plus or minus here. So this is actually going to be plus or minus 8. Alright, and so just like we did in past units, I'm going to set that up as 2 different equations. So I have x plus 1 equals 8. And then x plus 1 equals negative 8. And then I'm going to solve both of these by subtracting 1. So x equals 7 and x equals negative 9. I have to check both of those to make sure they are not extraneous. So I'm going to plug 7 into my original equation. Alright, and then I'm also going to plug negative 9 into my original equation. Okay, and I would do this all in the calculator all at one time. Just makes it easy. So 3 parentheses, 7 plus 1 is 8, and that's going to be raised to the, I'm going to put that fraction in parentheses, alright, to the 2/3. 3 times 8 to the 2/3 is 12. 12 is equal to 12. That side is good. Let's check the second one. So I have 3 again times negative 9 plus 1 is negative 8. So 3 times negative 8 to the 2/3. And that is also equal to 12. So both of these solutions work. Sometimes we will have equations that have 2 radicals, and when that happens, what we want to do is kind of set them equal to each other. So I'm going to move this whole thing, 3 square root w plus 1, I'm going to move that over to the other side. Okay, so now I've got 2 square root 3w minus 5, and that is equal to 3 square root w plus 1. And then to get rid of these square roots, I am going to square both sides. Now when I square these, the squared and square root get rid of each other, but I have to make sure to square this coefficient. So 2 squared is 4, so now I have 4 times 3w minus 5. And over here on this side, 3 squared is 9, so I would have 9 times w plus 1, because the squared and square root part would cancel each other out. Okay, so now this is an Algebra 1 equation again. So I'm going to distribute 12w minus 20 equals 9w plus 9. Move my w's to the same side, so by subtracting 9w, so I would get 3w minus 20 equals 9, and then I'm going to add 20 to both sides. 3w equals 29. So w is going to be equal to 29 over 3. Alright, and then remember you have to check for extraneous solution by plugging that in. So I want you to do that now on your own.